Sign the termination papers, Dr. Cortez, or I'll have security remove you from this building in handcuffs. The words hit like shrapnel. Dr. Elena Cortez stood in the director's office at Bayside Memorial Hospital, San Diego, her surgical scrubs still damp with a patient's blood. A patient who was alive because she'd opened his chest with her bare hands. Before we continue, if you want to hear more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button right now. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I want to know if you're Team Elena or Team Protocol. Dr. Marcus Holt, hospital director, adjusted his gold cufflinks and pushed the document across his mahogany desk. Behind him, 3 members of the ethics committee sat like stone statues, silent witnesses to an execution. You performed an unauthorized emergency thoracotomy, Holt said, his voice sharp as a scalpel, without attending supervision, without authorization, without regard for hospital protocol. Elena's jaw tightened. The patient coded. His heart stopped. I had 2 minutes before brain damage became irreversible. That's not your decision to make. I'm a trauma surgeon with 8 years of Navy combat experience. I've done that procedure 47 times. 23 of them in the field under mortar fire. Holt leaned forward, his eyes cold. This isn't Kandahar, doctor. This is a civilian hospital with rules, hierarchies, and legal liability. You don't get to play hero here. I wasn't playing. I was saving a life. You were reckless. The word hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. One of the committee members, Dr. Patricia Vance, chief of surgery, cleared her throat. For what it's worth, Marcus, the patient survived. Full cardiac function restored. He's stable in the ICU. Holt didn't even glance at her. Outcome is irrelevant. Process is everything. Elena felt her pulse hammering in her temples. She'd faced Taliban insurgents with more empathy than this man. Sign it, Holt repeated. She looked down at the paper. Voluntary resignation in lieu of termination. Effective immediately. Her hands that had sutured arteries in sandstorms, hands that had pulled Marines back from death, trembled as she picked up the pen. She didn't sign. Instead, she set the pen down carefully and looked Holt dead in the eye. I won't resign. If you want me gone, you'll have to fire me. Put it on record that you terminated a surgeon for saving a patient's life. Holt's face reddened. He snatched the paper back, pulled out a red stamp, and slammed it down. Terminated for cause. Get out. Elena walked through the emergency department for the last time. Nurses she'd worked alongside for 2 years avoided her eyes. A young resident, Dr. Mia Chen, 26, fresh out of medical school, stepped forward, tears streaming. Dr. Cortez, It's okay, Mia. It's not okay. You taught me to trust my instincts. You taught me that protocols serve patients, not the other way around. What you did today was the end of my career here. Elena managed a sad smile. Take care of them, Mia. All of them. She pushed through the double doors into the locker room. Her white coat hung on the hook, name embroidered in navy blue thread. Elena Cortez, MD, Trauma Surgery. She pulled it off the hook slowly, folded it with military precision, and placed it in her bag. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. How's your shift, Mija? She typed back. Long day. I'll call you tonight. She couldn't tell her. Not yet. In the hallway outside, she passed the ICU. Through the glass, she could see him. The thoracotomy patient. 62 years old, grandfather of 4, cardiac arrest during a routine procedure. He'd be dead if she'd waited for authorization. He was sitting up now, talking to his wife. Alive. Elena allowed herself one moment of satisfaction before the weight of unemployment crashed back down. Outside, the San Diego afternoon sun blazed white-hot. She walked to her car in the employee lot, each step feeling heavier than the last. She sat in the driver's seat and gripped the steering wheel. Her Navy dog tags hung from the rearview mirror. 8 years of service, 3 deployments, countless lives saved. She'd left active duty 2 years ago, burned out and haunted, believing civilian medicine would be easier. She was wrong. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Dr. Cortez? Yes? This is Margaret Chen. You saved my husband this morning. The cardiac arrest. Elena's breath caught. How is he? He's awake. He's talking. He asked me to find you. The woman's voice broke. You gave me my husband back. You gave our grandchildren their grandfather. I don't care what anyone says. You're a hero. Elena closed her eyes, tears spilling over. Tell him to rest. Tell him to follow his doctor's orders. I will. And Dr. Cortez. Thank you. Thank you for being brave. The call ended. Elena sat in silence, those words echoing. Thank you for being brave. She stared at the hospital in her rearview mirror. The place that just told her courage was a fireable offense. Then she heard it. Distant. Growing louder. The unmistakable sound of rotor blades cutting through sky. She looked up. A military helicopter appeared over the bay, low and fast, trailing a thin line of smoke. Heading straight for Bayside Memorial. The helicopter came in low and wrong. Elena stood frozen beside her car, watching the gray MH-60S Seahawk slice across the bay. Too fast, too steep, trailing black smoke from its tail rotor. Air traffic chatter crackled from somewhere nearby. A security guard's radio. Mayday, Mayday, Seahawk 27 experiencing catastrophic mechanical failure, pilot injured, requesting emergency landing. The aircraft wobbled violently, overcorrecting, nose pitching up and down like a wounded bird trying to stay airborne. It was heading straight for Bayside Memorial. Elena's combat instincts kicked in before her brain caught up. She dropped her bag and ran, back toward the hospital she'd just been fired from, back toward the chaos, back toward what she knew best. The helicopter veered sharply, barely clearing the parking structure. Nurses and security guards scattered across the ambulance bay, shouting, pointing skyward. The Seahawk's landing gear extended with a metallic groan. The pilot, whoever was still conscious enough to fly, aimed for the rooftop helipad. But the approach was all wrong. Too much speed. Too much angle. The skids hit concrete. The impact shook the entire building. Metal screamed. The tail rotor sheared clean off, tumbling across the roof in a shower of sparks. The fuselage slid sideways, slamming into the safety barrier, and finally lurched to a stop. Alarms erupted. Fire, evacuation, emergency codes blaring over the PA system. Elena burst through the stairwell door onto the roof. Smoke billowed from the helicopter's engine cowling. The rotors were still spinning down, whipping wind and debris across the helipad. Staff huddled near the roof access, frozen. Elena sprinted toward the wreckage. The co-pilot's door kicked open. A man in a flight suit stumbled out, blood streaming from a gash above his eyebrow. He was young, early 30s, lieutenant's insignia on his shoulder, and his eyes were wild with panic. "Medic! I need a medic!" Elena reached him. "I'm a trauma surgeon. How many on board?" "2. Me and Commander Vasquez." "He's..." The lieutenant's voice cracked. "He's not moving. Harness crushed his chest on impact. I think his ribs are broken. He can't breathe right." Elena looked into the cockpit. The pilot, Commander Ryan Vasquez, name stenciled on his helmet, was slumped forward against the harness, unconscious, his breathing rapid and shallow. Classic signs: flail chest, possible tension, pneumothorax. She climbed into the wreckage, glass crunching under her boots. The cabin reeked of jet fuel and burnt electronics. "Commander Vasquez, can you hear me?" She checked his pulse. Thready, fast. His lips were turning blue. Cyanotic. His trachea was deviated to the left. Textbook tension, pneumothorax. He had minutes. Maybe less. "I need a chest decompression kit," Elena shouted over her shoulder. 14-gauge needle now." A nurse appeared at the helicopter door, holding a trauma bag. But before she could hand it over, a voice cut through the chaos. "Stop." Dr. Marcus Holt emerged from the stairwell, flanked by 2 security guards. His face was red, his tie loosened, his authority crumbling but still clinging desperately. "No one touches them. We wait for paramedics and legal clearance. This is a military aircraft. We have no jurisdiction." Elena didn't even look at him. She reached for the trauma bag. The nurse hesitated, glancing between Elena and Holt. "Give me the bag," Elena said, her voice steady, cold. "She is not authorized to treat anyone," Holt snapped. "She was terminated 1 hour ago. If she touches that pilot, this hospital is liable for— He'll be dead in 3 minutes, Elena interrupted, finally turning to face Holt. Her eyes were steel. Tension pneumothorax. Air is trapped in his chest cavity, collapsing his lung and compressing his heart. Every second we wait, his blood pressure drops. His brain starts dying. Holt's jaw tightened. That's not your decision to make. The co-pilot, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, according to his name tape, stepped forward, breathing hard. Under UCMJ Article 1034, in life-threatening emergencies involving military personnel, I have authority to requisition civilian medical aid. Commander Vasquez is dying. She's treating him. Now. Holt opened his mouth to protest. Morrison pulled his sidearm from his holster and held it at his side, not threatening, but unmistakable. Sir, with all due respect, you can file whatever complaint you want after we land. Right now, you're going to step aside. The rooftop fell silent, except for the wind and the distant wail of sirens. Holt stepped back, furious, humiliated. Elena grabbed the trauma bag and climbed back into the cockpit. She tore open Vasquez's flight suit, exposing his chest. Hyperresonant on the right side. Distended. The trapped air was crushing his heart. She prepped the 14-gauge needle, found the landmark. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. And without hesitation, drove it through the chest wall. Air hissed out under pressure. Immediate relief. Vasquez's oxygen saturation began climbing on the portable monitor Morrison had pulled from the emergency kit. But he wasn't stable. Not yet. He needs an OR, Elena said. I need to open his chest, assess internal damage, control any bleeding. He's got broken ribs, possible hemothorax, maybe cardiac contusion. Morrison nodded. Whatever you need, Doc. Elena turned to the staff, still watching from the stairwell. I need OR3 prepped. Trauma team standing by. Blood products ready. No. Holt's voice was quiet now, but venomous. You will not operate in my hospital. Elena met his eyes. Vasquez's vitals beeped behind her. Blood pressure dropping again, heart rate climbing. He's crashing, the nurse whispered. Elena looked at the monitor, then at Holt, then at the dying man in front of her. She reached for the chest decompression kit. Holt stepped forward and physically blocked the nurse holding it. She is not authorized to treat anyone. Elena Cortez locked eyes with Dr. Marcus Holt across the blood-streaked rooftop. The wind whipped smoke between them. Commander Vasquez's vitals beeped frantically, oxygen saturation at 82% and dropping. He has 2 minutes, Elena said, her voice ice-cold. Legal clearance or a flag-draped coffin. Choose. Holt's face went white. His mouth opened, closed. The math was simple, brutal. Let the pilot die and face a federal investigation, or let the fired surgeon save him and face humiliation. Before he could answer, Lieutenant Morrison stepped between them. Under UCMJ Article 1034, Emergency Action Authority, I am requisitioning Dr. Cortez's medical expertise for a life-threatening situation involving United States military personnel. His voice was parade ground sharp. Sir, you can file complaints later. Right now, stand down. Holt staggered backward. Morrison nodded to the nurse. Give her the kit. Elena didn't wait. She climbed back into the cockpit, grabbed the equipment, and went to work. Vasquez was crashing, his blood pressure barely registering, his heart struggling against the compressed chest cavity. She performed a second needle decompression, this time on the left side. More trapped air hissed out. His oxygen saturation climbed. 86%, 89%, 92%. But it wasn't enough. He's bleeding internally, Elena said, examining his abdomen. Distended, rigid. Probable liver laceration, maybe splenic injury. I need an OR, now. Morrison keyed his radio. Bayside Memorial. This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison, U.S. Navy. Commander Vasquez requires immediate exploratory thoracotomy. Prep your trauma suite. A long silence. Then Holt's voice crackled over the radio, thin and bitter. OR3. Under my direct supervision. Elena met Morrison's eyes. That means he's covering his own ass, not helping. Can you work with him watching? She thought of Kandahar. insurgent mortars falling 50 meters away, dust choking her lungs, a 19-year-old Marine bleeding out on her table. I've worked under worse conditions. 20 minutes later, Elena stood at the scrub sink in OR3, methodically washing her hands for the second time that day. Through the glass she could see the surgical theater, Vasquez on the table, anesthesiologist prepping him, nurses arranging instruments, and Dr. Mia Chen, the young resident, gowned and gloved, waiting nervously. Holt stood in the observation gallery above, arms crossed, face like stone. Elena pushed through the door. "Dr. Chen, you're assisting." Mia's eyes went wide. "Dr. Cortez, I've never done a thoracotomy before." "Then today you learn." Elena's voice was calm, reassuring. "Just like I taught you. Trust your training. Trust your hands." The OR nurse handed Elena a scalpel. She looked up at Holt through the glass. He stared back, waiting for her to fail. She made the first incision. The next 90 minutes were a masterclass in trauma surgery. Elena moved with precision and speed, her hands remembering every battlefield lesson. She opened Vasquez's chest, spread the ribs with a retractor, and assessed the damage. Worse than she'd thought. A severed intercostal artery was pumping blood into the chest cavity. The lower lobe of his right lung was lacerated, leaking air. Broken ribs had punctured tissue in 3 places. "Suction," Elena said calmly. Mia obeyed, her hands shaking slightly. "Breathe, Dr. Chen. He's stable. We have time. See that artery? We're going to clamp it, tie it off, then repair the lung tissue. But show, don't tell. Watch me first." Elena clamped the artery with surgical precision, tied it off with 3/0 silk sutures, and moved to the lung. She worked methodically, talking Mia through every step, exactly as her own mentor had done for her in a field hospital outside Kandahar. Small bites, even tension. "The tissue is fragile. Treat it like silk." Mia nodded, absorbing every word. In the gallery, other surgeons began filtering in. Word had spread. The fired doctor was operating on a Navy pilot. Some came to watch her fail. Others came hoping she'd succeed. Elena didn't notice. She was in the zone, the place where time slowed, distractions vanished, and only the patient mattered. She repaired the lung, drained the hemothorax, stabilized the broken ribs with surgical wire, and closed the chest in layers. Vasquez's vitals strengthened, heart rate normalizing, blood pressure rising. The anesthesiologist exhaled audibly. "He's stable." Elena stepped back from the table, peeling off her gloves. The gallery erupted in applause, soft at first, then louder. Even Holt stood silent, his face unreadable. 2 hours later, Commander Ryan Vasquez was in recovery, sedated but stable. Elena sat in the hallway, exhausted, still wearing her surgical scrubs. Morrison approached, still in his flight suit, the gash above his eye now stitched. "Doc, I just spoke to his wife. She's flying in from Virginia tonight with their twins." His voice cracked. "Because of you, those kids still have a father." Elena nodded, too tired to speak. Morrison sat beside her. "You know what's going to happen now, right? This is going to be everywhere. Navy helicopter crash. Fired surgeon saves the pilot. Media's going to eat it up. I don't care about media. I care that he lives. I know. That's why I requested you specifically." Elena looked at him sharply. "What?" Before Morrison could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. A woman in navy dress blues appeared, crisp, authoritative, mid-50s. Behind her, a younger officer in service khakis carrying a briefcase. The woman stopped in front of Elena. "Dr. Cortez, I'm Rear Admiral Sarah Langford, Chief Medical Officer, Naval Medical Center, San Diego. This is Lieutenant Hayes, Public Affairs. We need to speak with you. Privately." Elena stood slowly, every muscle aching. "About what?" Admiral Langford's expression was unreadable. "About what happens next." Admiral Sarah Langford led Elena into an empty consultation room and closed the door. The younger officer, Lieutenant Hayes, remained outside, standing guard. Elena studied the Admiral's face. Something about her was familiar. The sharp eyes, the way she carried herself. Command presence earned through decades, not given. Do I know you, Admiral? Langford's expression softened slightly. Hospital ship USNS Mercy, 2019. You were a lieutenant treating casualties from the Helmand Province offensive. I was the medical officer in command. Elena's memory flickered. She'd been 28, exhausted, operating 16-hour shifts. The Admiral had walked through the surgical bay once, observing quietly. I remember. You saved 14 Marines that week. One of them wrote a letter recommending you for a commendation. Langford paused. I signed it. Elena didn't know what to say. Dr. Cortez, I'm not here about Commander Vasquez. He's stable. You did exceptional work. I'm here because we have a situation. Langford pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen. 12 miles offshore, the USS Bonhomme Richard is conducting SEAL training exercises. 2 hours ago, there was an accident during a fast rope insertion. Multiple casualties. Elena's pulse quickened. How many? 6 injured, 5 stabilized. 1 critical. Petty Officer First Class Devon Cross, 29 years old. Fall from 40 feet. Suspected spinal fracture, internal bleeding, traumatic brain injury. Langford's voice was clinical, controlled. The ship's surgeon, Lieutenant Blake Torres, is overwhelmed. He's not trained in neurosurgery. Cross is deteriorating rapidly. Why are you telling me this? Langford looked her directly in the eye. Because Torres requested you. By name. He remembered you from a joint ops exercise 3 years ago. He said if anyone can save Cross, it's you. Elena felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. Admiral, I was just fired from this hospital. I have no credentials, no authority. You do now. Langford slid a document across the table. Title 10, Section 12301, Emergency Authority. I'm offering you temporary reactivation as a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy Medical Corps. Duration, 48 hours. Full authority to practice military medicine without civilian oversight. Elena stared at the paper. Her old rank. Her old life. The one she'd walked away from because the weight of war had nearly broken her. I don't know if I can... Dr. Cortez, a sailor, is dying. His father is a 3-star general. His wife just gave birth to their first child 6 weeks ago. Langford's voice sharpened. You have a choice. Sign the paper and save his life. Or don't, and live with the consequences. Elena's hand hovered over the pen. Outside the door, she could hear the hospital's rhythm. Monitors beeping, gurneys rolling, doctors calling orders. The civilian world that had just rejected her. She picked up the pen and signed. Dr. Marcus Holt was waiting in the hallway when Elena emerged. Where do you think you're going? Admiral Langford stepped between them, her uniform crisp, her authority absolute. Dr. Cortez is now Lieutenant Commander Cortez, U.S. Navy Medical Corps. She's been reactivated under federal emergency authority. She no longer answers to you. Holt's face went red. She's standing in my hospital. This is civilian property, correct? But military personnel conducting official operations are not subject to your jurisdiction. If you interfere, you'll be obstructing a federal officer in the performance of her duties. That's a felony. Holt opened his mouth, closed it. His authority, everything he'd used to crush Elena hours earlier, evaporated in the face of federal law. Elena walked past him without a word. 20 minutes later, she stood on the rooftop helipad wearing a Navy flight suit, her old dog tags around her neck, a medical kit strapped to her back. Lieutenant Morrison approached, grinning. Welcome back, Commander. It's only for 48 hours. That's what they all say. A massive CH-53 Super Stallion descended from the sky, rotors pounding the air, landing with precision on the helipad. Elena climbed aboard. The crew chief handed her a helmet with integrated comms. Commander, we're wheels up in 60 seconds. Flight time to the Bonhomme Richard, 12 minutes. Elena buckled in. Through the open door, she could see Bayside Memorial below. The hospital that had fired her. The place that had valued protocol over patience. And standing on the roof, arms crossed, face twisted with rage, Dr. Marcus Holt. Their eyes met. The helicopter lifted off. Elena watched him shrink into the distance, a small, bitter man clinging to a system that was already crumbling. She turned away and faced the Pacific. Somewhere out there, a sailor was dying, and she was the only one who could save him. The super stallion touched down on the carrier deck with a bone-jarring thud. Elena unbuckled and jumped out, immediately hit by the controlled chaos of a military ship in crisis mode. SEALs in desert fatigues moved with purpose across the deck. Corpsmen shuttled between triage stations. The smell of jet fuel and salt air mixed with something darker, blood and fear. A lean, exhausted-looking officer in surgical scrubs jogged toward her, hand extended. "Commander Cortez?" "Lieutenant Blake Torres, ship's surgeon." "Thank God you're here." Elena shook his hand. "Where's the patient?" "Medical bay, deck 3. Follow me." They descended through narrow corridors, the ship's metal skeleton groaning around them. Torres briefed her as they moved. "Petty Officer First Class Devon Cross, 29. Fast rope training accident. Fell 40 feet when the rope snapped. Initial assessment. Possible C-spine fracture, severe head trauma, internal bleeding. He's been unconscious since impact. Imaging. Portable CT shows a subdural hematoma, right hemisphere, expanding rapidly. Abdominal scan shows grade 3 liver laceration, active bleeding. He needs immediate craniotomy and exploratory laparotomy." Elena finished. 2 different specialties, 2 surgical teams. Torres stopped walking. "Commander, I'm not trained in neurosurgery. I can handle the abdominal bleed, but the brain, then I'll do both." "That's impossible. You can't." "I did it in Kandahar. Mass casualty event. 3 critical patients, 1 surgeon." Elena's voice was calm, matter of fact. "It's called simultaneous neuroabdominal stabilization. Unorthodox, risky, but it works if you know what you're doing." Torres stared at her. "You're serious. Dead serious. We'll set up 2 surgical bays side by side. You handle the liver laceration while I drain the hematoma. I'll supervise both procedures, moving between stations. We work in tandem, coordinated timing. That's insane. It's medicine. Let's go." The medical bay was smaller than a civilian OR, but equipped with everything Elena needed. Petty Officer Cross lay on the table, intubated, his vitals flickering on monitors. His skin was pale, pupils unequal. Classic signs of increased intracranial pressure. Time was running out. Elena scrubbed in with Torres and a senior corpsman, Chief Ramirez, a stocky man with 20 years of service and hands like a surgeon's. "Chief, you're my second set of eyes on the craniotomy. Torres, you start the abdominal exploration. I'll open the skull first, assess the bleed, then move to assist you. Every 3 minutes, we check vitals and coordinate." "Clear?" Both men nodded. "Let's save him." The next 4 hours were a masterclass in precision medicine under impossible conditions. Elena made the first incision along Cross's scalp, retracted the skin, and used a cranial drill to create a bone flap. The subdural hematoma was massive, dark, clotted blood pressing against his brain tissue. She evacuated the clot carefully, millimeter by millimeter, while monitoring intracranial pressure. "Chief, suction. Keep the field clear." "Yes, ma'am." Meanwhile, Torres worked on the abdomen, exposing the lacerated liver. Blood pooled in the peritoneal cavity. Elena glanced over. "Torres, pack the liver with hemostatic gauze. Don't try to repair it yet. Just control the bleeding. I'll be there in 2 minutes." She finished evacuating the hematoma, placed a temporary drain, and moved to the second table. Torres had the liver exposed, packed, but the bleeding wasn't fully controlled. Elena assessed quickly. "You missed a branch of the hepatic artery. There, see it? Clamp and tie." She worked alongside Torres, repairing the vessel, then returned to Cross's head to complete the craniotomy closure. Back and forth. Brain, liver, drain, suture, check vitals, adjust. Chief Ramirez whispered to a watching sailor. "I've never seen anything like this." 4 hours and 17 minutes after the first incision, Petty Officer Devon Cross was stable. The hematoma drained, the liver laceration repaired, vitals strong and climbing. Elena stepped back, exhausted, her scrubs soaked with sweat. The medical bay erupted in applause. SEALs watching from the corridor nodded. Warrior respect for warrior skill. Torres pulled off his gloves, shaking his head in disbelief. "Commander, that was..." "Teamwork," Elena interrupted. You handled the abdominal work perfectly. Admiral Langford appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Commander Cortez, a word. They stepped into the corridor. Cross's father is Lieutenant General Victor Cross, Marine Corps, stationed at Camp Pendleton. He's inbound via COD aircraft, ETA 30 minutes. Langford paused. He wants to meet the surgeon who saved his son's life. Elena felt the weight of that statement. A 3-star general, a father, a debt that couldn't be repaid. Admiral, I just did my job. No, Commander. You did something extraordinary. Again. Langford's eyes softened. The general is bringing someone else with him. A DoD inspector. They want to talk to you about Bayside Memorial. Elena's pulse quickened. What about it? Let's just say Dr. Holt's about to have a very bad week. Lieutenant General Victor Cross stepped off the COD aircraft with the bearing of a man who'd commanded Marines through 3 wars. He was 58, silver-haired, with 3 stars gleaming on his collar and eyes that had seen too much loss. But today, those eyes held something different. Fear. Elena waited in the medical bay corridor as the general approached. Admiral Langford made introductions, but the general cut her off. Lieutenant Commander Cortez, take me to my son. His voice was command, not request. Elena led him to the recovery area. Petty Officer Devon Cross lay sedated, monitors beeping steadily, bandages wrapped around his skull and abdomen. Alive. Breathing. Stable. The general stopped at the foot of the bed. His jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he reached out and touched his son's hand. How bad was it? His voice was barely a whisper. Elena answered clinically. Subdural hematoma. Grade 3 liver laceration. Spinal contusion. He arrested twice during surgery. But we stabilized him. The CT shows no permanent brain damage. With rehabilitation, full recovery is possible. The general closed his eyes. His wife just had their first child. 6 weeks ago. A daughter. He'll meet her, sir. He'll hold her. He'll watch her grow up. The general turned to face Elena. His eyes were wet. Where did you learn to operate like that? Kandahar, sir. Helmand Province, 2019. Field hospital attached to the 2nd Marine Division. The general's expression shifted. Recognition. Memory. I commanded those ground forces. Operation Lightning Strike. We took heavy casualties that spring. 47 critical in 1 week, sir. I operated 90 hours straight. You saved my Marines. I tried to, sir. He studied her face. Why did you leave active duty, Commander? Elena hesitated. The truth was complicated. Painful. Burnout, sir. I watched too many kids die on my table. I thought civilian medicine would be easier. Less weight. Was it? No, sir. Just different protocols. Same weight. The general nodded slowly. Then he pulled out his phone and stepped into the corridor. Elena couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw his posture. Rigid, authoritative. He was giving orders to someone who didn't want to hear them. He returned 2 minutes later. Commander, I just spoke with the DoD Inspector General's office. They're opening an investigation into Bayside Memorial Hospital, specifically into Dr. Marcus Holt's termination practices. He paused. You weren't the first physician he fired for saving patients. You were the 4th. Elena's breath caught. 4th? 3 others over 5 years. All for protocol violations. All life-saving interventions. Whistleblower complaints buried. Board members silenced. The general's voice hardened. That ends today. Admiral Langford appeared in the doorway. Commander Cortez, you're cleared to return to San Diego. The Super Stallion departs in 10 minutes. Elena nodded, but the general stopped her. Commander, one more thing. This... He gestured to his son, to the medical bay, to everything she'd done. This is who you are. Don't let civilians tell you otherwise. The flight back felt longer. Elena stared out the helicopter window at the Pacific, endless blue, cold and indifferent. Her mind raced. 4 physicians. 4 lives destroyed by one man's ego. Lieutenant Morrison sat across from her, watching. You okay, Commander? Just thinking. About? About how many patients died because those other doctors weren't there. Morrison leaned forward. You can't save everyone, Doc, but you saved 2 today. That counts. The coastline appeared, San Diego's skyline glittering in the late afternoon sun, and surrounding Bayside Memorial, a sea of news vans, satellite trucks, reporters with cameras. Elena's stomach dropped. What the hell? Morrison checked his phone. His eyes widened. Doc, you need to see this. He handed her the phone. The headline: Fired surgeon saves Navy pilot, then SEAL, in back-to-back miracles. Below it, Elena's photo, her military service record, testimonials from patients, video footage of the helicopter landing. And at the bottom, Hospital Director Marcus Holt under federal investigation. The story had exploded. Elena's face was everywhere. The Super Stallion couldn't land at Bayside Memorial. Too many reporters. Too many cameras. The FAA had closed the airspace around the hospital due to unauthorized media helicopter traffic. Instead, they diverted to Naval Air Station North Island. Elena stepped off the helicopter onto the tarmac, legs unsteady after the adrenaline crash. Morrison stayed close, his hand on her elbow. You're a national story now, Commander. This changes everything. A black SUV waited at the edge of the runway. Admiral Langford emerged, accompanied by a woman in Navy service dress blues, JAG insignia on her collar. Commander Cortez, this is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Pierce, Judge Advocate General's Corps. We need to debrief. Now. They drove Elena to a secure briefing room inside the base headquarters. No windows, no phones. Just a conference table, 3 chairs, and a stack of files marked Confidential. Langford opened the first file. Doctor, Marcus Holt terminated 4 physicians at Bayside Memorial over the past 5 years. You were the 4th. She slid photos across the table. Dr. James Kim, 2020. Performed emergency intubation without attending supervision. Patient lived. Kim was fired. Another photo. Dr. Rachel Torres, 2021. Administered clot-busting drugs during a stroke, against protocol but within the therapeutic window. Patient recovered fully. Torres was fired. A third. Dr. Michael Chen, 2023. Performed bedside pericardiocentesis on a patient in cardiac tamponade. Patient survived. Chen was fired. Elena stared at the faces. Young, talented, destroyed. Where are they now? Kim works at a rural clinic in Montana. Torres left medicine entirely. She's a pharmaceutical sales rep. Chen is fighting malpractice insurance claims because Holt reported him to the state medical board for reckless endangerment. Langford's voice was granite. 3 physicians. Dozens of potential lives saved. Careers ruined. The JAG officer leaned forward. Whistleblower complaints were filed after each termination. Hospital board buried them. Holt had friends in administration. He controlled the narrative. Until today, Langford said. Until a Navy helicopter crashed on his roof, and you saved 2 service members in front of witnesses, cameras, and God. Elena's hands were shaking. What happens now? The hospital board convened an emergency session 1 hour ago. Holt has been suspended pending federal review. The DoD Inspector General is subpoenaing records. This goes all the way to the Secretary of Defense. Langford pulled out a navy blue folder embossed with gold. She opened it carefully. Lieutenant Commander Elena Cortez, by order of the Secretary of the Navy, you are hereby awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for exceptional valor, surgical skill, and life-saving action under combat conditions aboard the USS Bonhomme Richard, 22nd November 2025. Elena stared at the citation. Her name, her actions, immortalized. I don't want a medal. I want to practice medicine without being punished for it. Then testify tomorrow. The board is holding a formal hearing. They need to hear from you. Elena closed her eyes. I just want this to be over. It won't be over until we fix the system that created Marcus Holt. 2 hours later, Elena stood outside her apartment in Point Loma, a small 1-bedroom overlooking the bay. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop since the story broke. 127 missed calls, 483 text messages, 62 voicemails. She scrolled through the notifications, interview requests from CNN, NBC, Fox News, job offers from hospitals in New York, Houston, Boston, messages from former patients. You saved my life. Thank you. You're a hero. She silenced the phone and stared at the metal in her hand. Was this worth it? The chaos? The publicity? The weight of expectation? A knock at the door startled her. She opened it. Dr. Mia Chen stood in the hallway, mascara streaked, eyes red from crying. Dr. Cortez. Mia, what happened? Dr. Holt. Before they suspended him, he tried to fire me. He said I testified against him when the board asked about your surgery this morning. He called me disloyal. He said I'd never work in medicine again. Elena pulled her inside. He can't fire you. He's suspended. He already submitted the paperwork. HR has it. I'm supposed to clean out my locker tomorrow. Elena's jaw tightened. Enough. She grabbed her phone and dialed Admiral Langford. Admiral, we have a problem. Elena drove Mia to a 24-hour diner in Mission Valley. Neutral ground, away from the media circus, away from Bayside Memorial. They sat in a corner booth. Mia's hands shook as she wrapped them around a coffee mug. He called me into his office this afternoon, before they suspended him. He said I was disloyal, that I'd betrayed the institution. Mia's voice cracked. He said if I testified tomorrow, he'd make sure I never practiced medicine anywhere. He has connections at every hospital in California. Elena's jaw tightened. He's bluffing. He's suspended. He has no power. He was erasing files when I walked past his office. Personnel records. Termination documents. He's covering his tracks. Elena pulled out her phone and dialed the number Admiral Langford had given her. Agent Rebecca Ortiz, DOD Inspector General's office. Agent Ortiz, this is Dr. Elena Cortez. We have a problem. Dr. Holt is destroying evidence. Can you prove it? Elena looked at Mia. I have a witness. Dr. Mia Chen. She saw him. Bring her to the federal building tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. We'll take her statement under oath. And Dr. Cortez, the hospital board hearing is at 10 a.m. You need to be there. This is your chance to expose everything. Elena hung up. She looked across the table at Mia. You're going to testify. And so am I. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by documents Admiral Langford had given her. Her termination file, witness statements, medical records from the thoracotomy patient. She read through everything methodically, and the discrepancies jumped out. Holt's termination report claimed the patient nearly died due to unauthorized intervention. But the medical records showed full cardiac recovery within 90 minutes, no complications, discharged 3 days later. Witness statements attributed to 3 nurses, but Elena recognized the handwriting. All 3 were written by the same person. Forged. A disciplinary memo citing repeated protocol violations. But Elena's personnel file showed 0 prior infractions. Spotless record. He'd fabricated the entire case. At 3 a.m., Elena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dr. Cortez, this is Margaret Chen. My husband, the man you saved, wants to speak at the hearing tomorrow. Can he? Elena stared at the message. Then she forwarded it to Agent Ortiz with a single word. Evidence. The hospital board hearing room was standing room only. Media packed the back rows. Hospital staff lined the walls. Nurses, residents, attending physicians. Former patients filled the gallery, holding handmade signs. Dr. Cortez saved my life. At the front table sat Dr. Marcus Holt and his lawyer, a sharp-suited man with cold eyes. The board chairman, Dr. Robert Kane, chief of staff, called the session to order. This hearing will address the termination of Dr. Elena Cortez and related allegations of misconduct by hospital director Dr. Marcus Holt. Dr. Cortez, please take the stand. Elena walked to the witness chair, every eye in the room following her. Dr. Kane spoke first. Dr. Cortez, in your own words, describe what happened. Elena took a breath. I performed an emergency thoracotomy on a coding patient. His heart had stopped. I had 2 minutes before irreversible brain damage. I acted. The patient survived. Dr. Holt fired me 4 hours later. Did you violate protocol? Technically, yes, but the alternative was watching a patient die while waiting for permission to save him. Holt's lawyer stood. Dr. Cortez, isn't it true you have a history of impulsive decision-making? That you were discharged from the Navy due to— I was never discharged, Elena interrupted, her voice steel. I completed my service honorably, and yesterday I was reactivated to save 2 military personnel because the Navy trusts my judgment, even if this hospital doesn't. The room erupted in applause. The chairman gavelled for silence. Dr. Kane continued, We have testimony from Dr. Mia Chen, who states that Dr. Holt attempted to destroy personnel records yesterday. Dr. Chen, please stand. Mia rose, trembling but resolute. I saw him. He was shredding termination files. Holt's face went white. Agent Ortiz entered from the back, holding a briefcase. Chairman Kane, federal subpoena. All personnel records related to Dr. Cortez and 3 other terminated physicians are now under DOD custody. Then the doors opened again. An elderly man in a hospital gown, IV pole in hand, walked slowly down the aisle. His wife supported him, the thoracotomy patient. Chairman Kane, my name is Harold Chen. Dr. Cortez saved my life 3 days ago. I'm alive because she chose courage over protocol. The room fell silent. Dr. Kane looked at Holt. Dr. Holt, do you have anything to say? Holt stood, his voice bitter. I was protecting this institution. You were protecting yourself, Kane interrupted. This board votes now. All in favor of terminating Dr. Marcus Holt immediately? 11 hands rose. All in favor of reinstating Dr. Elena Cortez with full back pay and offering her the position of Director of Trauma Services? 11 hands. Dr. Kane looked at Elena. Dr. Cortez? Elena stood slowly. I need time to think. And she walked out. Elena walked along the San Diego waterfront as the sun set over the Pacific. She'd left the hearing room because staying felt like surrender, accepting victory without understanding what it cost, what it meant, what came next. The wind off the bay was cold. She wrapped her jacket tighter and kept walking. Commander Cortez. She turned. Lieutenant Morrison jogged toward her, still in his flight suit. How did you find me? You're not exactly hard to track. Your face is on every news channel. He fell into step beside her. General Cross wants to see you. At Camp Pendleton. Tonight. Why? He didn't say. But when a 3-star general requests your presence, you go. An hour later, Elena sat in the general's office. Sparse, functional, lined with commendations and photos of Marines in combat. General Victor Cross poured 2 glasses of bourbon and slid one across the desk. To my son, and the woman who gave him back to me. They drank in silence. Then the general set down his glass. Commander, I'm offering you a position. Chief of Trauma Surgery, Naval Medical Center Pacific. Brand new facility, opening in 6 months. State-of-the-art equipment. Hand-picked team. Full autonomy. Your mandate. Train the next generation of combat surgeons. Elena stared at him. Sir, I left the Navy because the weight of war nearly broke you. I read your file. I know what you saw in Kandahar Helmand, the hospital ship. I know you carried every loss like a stone. He leaned forward. But here's what I also know. You don't run from who you are. You build a place where that person can thrive. What if I'm not that person anymore? Yesterday, you saved 2 service members under impossible conditions. You are that person. You've always been. Elena's throat tightened. I need time. 48 hours. Then I need an answer. The next morning, Robert Kane, Bayside Memorial's board chairman, called Elena. Dr. Cortez, the board voted unanimously. We're offering you Director of Trauma Services. Holt's office, full authority to restructure the department, carte blanche to implement the protocols you believe in. Whatever you need. Elena closed her eyes. 2 offers, 2 futures. I need to think about it. Of course. But Elena, we need leaders like you. Don't let one man's cruelty drive you away from civilian medicine. That afternoon, Elena visited Commander Vasquez in recovery at Naval Medical Center San Diego. His wife sat beside the bed, holding their infant twins. Vasquez was awake, smiling weakly. "Commander Cortez, they told me you're the reason I'm alive. You're the reason I'm here. Your co-pilot invoked military authority when the hospital tried to stop me." Vasquez's wife stood, eyes wet. "Thank you. Thank you for giving them their father." Elena looked at the twins, tiny, fragile, unaware of how close they'd come to growing up without him. "Commander," Vasquez said quietly, "Morrison told me about your choice, Navy or civilian. Whatever you decide, remember this. You've already changed lives. Don't let guilt or fear make the decision for you." 24 hours later, Elena walked into Bayside Memorial's emergency department unannounced. The staff froze mid-motion, nurses holding charts, residents mid-conversation, paramedics wheeling in a gurney. Dr. Robert Kane stood in the hallway, waiting. Elena approached him slowly, every step deliberate. "Chairman Kane, I'll accept your offer, but on my terms." "Name them." "Full authority over hiring and firing, a patient advocate ombudsman position, independent oversight, mandatory trauma retraining for all senior staff who enabled Holt. And the Cortez Protocol becomes hospital policy. Any physician can override protocol in life-threatening emergencies, with peer review afterward, not punishment." Kane extended his hand. "Done. Welcome back, Director Cortez." The emergency department erupted in applause. Mia Chen stepped forward, tears streaming. "Dr. Cortez, does this mean—" "It means you're my senior resident, and we have work to do." Elena's first day as Director of Trauma Services began at 6 a.m. She stood in the emergency department wearing fresh scrubs, her Navy Commendation Medal pinned to her white coat, not as decoration, but as reminder of who she was, of what she'd fought for. The junior staff gathered around her, residents, nurses, paramedics, their faces filled with hope and exhaustion. The senior physicians stood in the back, arms crossed, Holt's loyalists, the ones who'd watched her get fired and said nothing. Elena addressed them all. "I'm implementing the Cortez Protocol effective immediately. Any physician in this hospital can override protocol in life-threatening emergencies. You'll document your decision, undergo peer review afterward, but you will not be punished for saving lives. Fear ends today. Medicine begins." Applause erupted from the junior staff. The senior physicians remained silent. One of them, Dr. Philip Hartman, a 25-year veteran with silver hair and a permanent scowl, stepped forward. "Dr. Cortez, this is reckless. Protocols exist for a reason. If everyone starts making unilateral decisions, we'll have chaos." Elena met his eyes. "Dr. Hartman, how many patients have you lost while waiting for authorization?" His face reddened. "That's not—" "Answer the question." Silence. "In 3 months, we'll review the data. Outcomes, complications, patient satisfaction, mortality rates. If the Cortez Protocol increases harm, I'll resign. But if it saves lives, you'll either retrain or retire. Your choice." Hartman walked out. 3 months later, the data spoke for itself. Trauma outcomes, improved 40%. Patient complaints, down 60%. Mortality rate for critical cases, lowest in hospital history. JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, published a case study. Patient-centered institutional reform, the Bayside Memorial Model. Elena's office was flooded with requests from hospitals nationwide wanting to implement similar protocols. But the transformation wasn't just policy. It was people. Elena rebuilt her team from the ground up. Dr. Mia Chen promoted to senior resident, now teaching junior doctors the courage Elena taught her. Lieutenant Blake Torres, the ship's surgeon from the Bonhomme Richard, joined as a civilian attending, bringing combat medicine expertise to the ER. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, medically retired from flight duty after the helicopter crash, became the ER's operational coordinator, logistics, scheduling, crisis management. They were a team forged in fire. Not everyone adapted. Dr. Hartman challenged Elena twice more, once in a staff meeting, once in front of the board. Both times, Elena responded with data, not emotion. When he called the Cortez Protocol a lawsuit waiting to happen, she showed him the hospital's legal department's analysis. 0 malpractice claims in 3 months. She offered him a choice: mandatory retraining in emergency decision-making or early retirement with full benefits. He chose retirement. Elena also launched a quarterly combat medicine seminar, open to civilian and military medical providers. The goal? Share lessons from battlefield trauma and apply them to civilian emergency medicine. The first session drew 200 attendees. General Victor Cross delivered the keynote address. He stood at the podium, his son Devon, now fully recovered, sitting in the front row. "Medicine is about courage," the general said. "Not just the courage to cut, but the courage to stand up when the system tells you to stand down. Dr. Cortez showed us that courage. Now it's our turn to follow." The room erupted in standing ovation. 6 months into Elena's tenure, the system faced its greatest test. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Friday when the call came in. Multiple vehicle collision, Interstate 5, tour bus versus semi-truck. 23 critical patients inbound. ETA, 8 minutes. Elena's blood went cold. 23 criticals. That was twice their normal capacity. She keyed the emergency intercom. "All available staff to ER. Code mass casualty. This is not a drill." The department exploded into coordinated chaos, exactly as she'd trained them. 8 minutes later, the first ambulance arrived. Then another, and another. 23 stretchers, 23 lives hanging in the balance. Elena stood at the center of the storm, directing teams, triaging patients, making split-second decisions. This was what they'd built. This was the test. 23 stretchers flooded Bayside Memorial's emergency department. Elena stood at the epicenter, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Mia, take Trauma Bay 1, multiple fractures, possible internal bleeding. Torres, Bay 2, head trauma, GCS 6. Morrison, coordinate bed assignments. Move." The system she'd built activated like a living organism. Every resident knew their role. Every nurse anticipated the next move. Every decision was made without fear, without hesitation. This was the Cortez protocol in action. Elena moved between patients, triaging with brutal efficiency. Red tags for immediate surgery, yellow for urgent but stable, green for minor injuries. 2 patients coded simultaneously. "Mia, you take the cardiac arrest in Bay 4. I'll handle the tension pneumothorax in Bay 6. Mia's eyes went wide. "By myself? You've watched me do this a dozen times. Now it's your turn. Trust your training. I'll be right here." Elena sprinted to Bay 6 while monitoring Mia through the glass partition. The young resident's hands trembled as she positioned the defibrillator paddles. Clear. Shock delivered. The patient's heart rhythm converted. Mia had saved her first life solo. Elena smiled, then turned back to her own patient. Needle decompression, chest tube insertion, stabilization. 10 minutes. Done. The night blurred into controlled chaos. Surgeries, transfusions, intubations. Every physician working at the edge of their capability, supported by a system that trusted them to make the right call. By dawn, the count was in. 22 survivors. 1 loss. The deceased, a 78-year-old woman with massive head trauma, had been triaged by 3 independent physicians. All reached the same conclusion. Unsurvivable injuries. No protocol, no intervention, could have changed the outcome. Elena stood in the break room, staring at the patient's chart. The weight of that 1 loss pressed against the victory of 22 saved. Morrison found her there. "Commander, you did everything right. Doesn't feel like it. That's because you care. The day you stop feeling that weight is the day you should quit." He paused. "Do you regret it? Turning down the Navy position for this?" Elena looked out the window at the sunrise painting San Diego gold and orange. "I'm doing the same work here, just with worse coffee and better sunsets." Morrison laughed. "Fair enough." Later that morning, the mayor of San Diego and the Navy Surgeon General arrived at Bayside Memorial for a joint press conference. Elena stood reluctantly at the podium, uncomfortable with the attention. The mayor spoke first. "Yesterday, Bayside Memorial handled the largest mass casualty incident in San Diego history. 23 critical patients, 22 saved. This is what leadership looks like. The Surgeon General added, Doctor, Cortez represents the best of both civilian and military medicine. Courage, skill, and unwavering commitment to saving lives. Reporters shouted questions. Elena raised her hand for silence. This wasn't me. This was a team. Nurses who stayed past their shifts. Residents who performed procedures they'd only practiced. A system that trusted them to act. That's what saved 22 lives. A reporter pressed, What about the patient who didn't survive? Elena's voice was steady. We did everything possible. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we lose. But we don't let fear of loss stop us from fighting for the ones we can save. 6 months later, Elena stood on the hospital's rooftop helipad, now officially designated the Cortez Landing. A bronze plaque read, Where Courage Meets Compassion, in honor of those who choose action over protocol. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. A medical helicopter appeared on the horizon. Routine transfer, nothing dramatic. It landed smoothly. The crew waved as they transferred their patient. Elena watched, then walked toward the stairwell. Her phone buzzed. A journal entry reminder she'd set for herself months ago. She typed, They fired me for saving a life. A helicopter crashed, and I saved 2 more. The system tried to break me. Instead, I broke the system. Now, every day, we save lives the right way. Not the easy way. The right way. She descended into the emergency department. In the main corridor, a new mission statement hung in a frame. Voted on by staff, approved by the board. Protocol serves the patient, always. Elena smiled. Her radio crackled. Director Cortez, incoming trauma, motorcycle accident, ETA 4 minutes. She grabbed her coat and headed for the bay. Always ready, always willing, always there.